It has been a story we have been talking about in Chicago since they built the dang thing. And now that the rumors seem to be true, it seems like the boxes are being packed. It seems like the family is getting ready. The Chicago Bears moving to Arlington Heights seems to be more and more of a true, not only from speculation, from bids, from all these different little tea leaves we are getting. It is also being told by Bears spokespersons about this move. And all this comes to us from CBSSports.com here on the Sports Cubicle with Dan Marver, Devin Tingle, Paul Chivari, myself, Mike Mercado. A lot of drama in the Lakefront as Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, and a committee have an idea of how to keep the Bears in Chicago. So this comes to us from CBS Sports by Cody Benjamin and Jeff Carr. The Bears are positioned for a future relocation from downtown Chicago to the suburb of Arlington Heights in order to build a new, quote, world-class stadium. We'll talk about how much trust we have for the Bears actually doing that. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is preparing the city makes its own renovations to keep the team in town. A mayoral committee is set to recommend Chicago, quote, explore the feasibility of adding a dome to Soldier Field, the Bears' longtime open-air stadium, along with other significant updates to the historic venue, per Crane's Chicago Business. But on Friday, the Bears shot down those proposals, revealing it's either Arlington Heights or they plan a new stadium in that park or a bust. Quote, the only potential project the Bears are exploring for a new stadium development is Arlington Park, according to a statement from a Bears spokesperson per the Daily Herald. Quote, as part of our mutual agreement with the seller of that property, we are not pursuing alternative stadium deals or sites, including renovations to Soldier Field, while we are under contract. The Bears can exit their Soldier Field lease in 2026. The team last fall finalized a purchase agreement for Arlington International Racecourse. We've been talking about that forever. It's a 326-acre property in Arlington Heights, with the eyes in construction of an entirely new complex, his article mentions. But this is where it's really important, Marver. I want to get your thoughts on this because I was only 12 years old when last renovated in 2002. Soldier Field is an iconic destination among NFL venues because of its history, but it's also the smallest capacity at 61,000 of any current stadium. So marvelous. We have been talking about the story forever since we started the Sports Cubicle, since we were with the awesome Jerry Riles over at the Rewind Sports 60. That this was inevitable. The McCaskies, they don't own Soldier Field. They lease it from the city of Chicago. We've seen the wave of all the billions of dollars these NFL teams and owners are making from not just the 8-9 games that they have on the schedule, but also the Final Four, WrestleManias, the Super Bowl, concerts, all this, all that. And it looks like it's just a little too late for the city of Chicago, for the mayor to get to this point. And I'm just, when I hear about all this, it's just typical Chicago red tape, bureaucracy, unions, backdoor dealings, and a whole lot of nothing. Because when you look at when they built the new renovations in 2002, right? The whole reason they did all this, they didn't build a dome, blah, 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 was to maintain its historical value, its historical signal and status, status in the city. But they lost all that anyway because of all the construction they did. So first off, your thoughts on the mayor talking about this $1 billion idea with the committee of building a dome. Second, at the time, I was 12 years old, and even I thought at that time how dumb it is, that they could have solved all this. Mayor Daley could have solved this a long time ago, and it doesn't really matter anymore, right? Like the only smart move for the Chicago Bears are to build their own new stadium. And I want to get your thoughts on that, but the initial thoughts of Mayor Lori Lightfoot and what the Bears did from Jump Street.
Yeah. Well, to put a dome there, I'm trying to visualize that. Even with it would get rid of the historic value because they would have to do something with the pillars because the pillars, I believe, have some space between them. So they're going to put a dome down to ground level. And according to what I read, the capacity would become 61,500, which would still be the smallest in the league. So that aspect would not change. In terms of revenues, they'd be far better off with, they could put in a gazillion suites and whatever in Arlington Heights and go for it. There's still logistical issues no matter how you slice it because the parking and the egress and the ingress to the stadium would still be rather poor. So that that wouldn't change anything. So I just don't see, okay, put a lid on it is not going to solve the problem. I think that this was interesting to me in that there hadn't been any clear-cut indication that it was all go at Arlington Heights until this little exchange between Lori Lightfoot and the unnamed Bears representative that said that their only plan at the moment was with respect to, like you said, would be just Arlington Heights. As part of our mutual agreement with the seller of the property, we're not pursuing alternate stadium deals or sites, including renovations to Soldier Field while we are under contract. I mean, I don't know who that's from, an unnamed Bears source, but that would be the first indication that Soldier Field is done. And so maybe, Lori Lightfoot can work on getting a team to move here. Maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars can move here, or whatever. So there's been 2 teams in Chicago before, and it would be, they wouldn't even be in the same stadium, like is the case with the Jets and the Giants. So it would, that's an option, just get another team. But I think that this opens the door to the move. The problem, I mean, when was Soldier Field built? 100 years ago. So I mean, it's to renovate it would be like, putting lipstick on a pig to me. It's just, it's not going to work. I'm just trying to imagine keeping the pillars the dome on it. So it would be like, putting a dome on the Parthenon at the Coliseum or something. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't see that happening.
Well, I mean, they did it by putting the dang spaceship into the Roman
Yeah.
Coliseum. So I think the big issue that I have about all of this is at the end of the day, it's still the McCaskies who are doing this. They're still the ones who are getting the green lights, who are hiring the architectural firms and their firms, and they are the ones who are going to be spearheading this. Now, they did hire the people that made Lucas Oil Stadium over in Indianapolis. Beautiful stadium. But I think Bear fans need to kind of take expectations down a little. You're not getting Jerry World. You're not getting SoFi Stadium. You're not getting one of these crazy things that they built in Las Vegas. You're going to get a mom and pop's humble little stadium. Now, it's going to be big. It's going to be big enough to host all the stuff that you need, the minimum capacity and whatnot. Like you said, they're going to have the suites. They're going to put up all the new season ticket holders and whatnot. But you're not getting a flashy stadium. I don't trust this organization to do this smoothly. They have no choice but to make this a smooth transition because this is now going to be the family business. We've always talked about how the McCaskies, the Bears ownership, when you really look amongst all the owners in the NFL, they really are a mom and pop shop compared to the other billionaires. We're talking about Jeff Bezos trying to buy Washington, for God's sakes. We've seen how much the Broncos are worth. Like, the Bears want to get to a point where they're making money. The only revenue the Bears have, that family, is the Chicago Bears. They don't own Walmart. They don't own Walgreens. They don't own any of these companies. So I think it's really important for them to do this. And it's also important to talk about that second team scenario here in Chicago. I do think there's going to be a time, 30 years from now, 15 years from now, sooner rather than you think, that there will be a second NFL team in Chicago. I don't think they will play at Soldier Field, for the simple fact that now you have a brand new stadium half an hour out. And while no matter what, when you have 70,000 people going to one location, it's always going to be busy. There's always going to be traffic. It's going to be a nightmare. But at least there's 4 different roads and 2 different expressways you could take to get to Arlington Heights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Soldier Field is north and south. And it's 3 parking lots and 5 entrances. And you're right on the lake. And McCormick Place is right there, and including all the other tourism stuff that happens in downtown. I love the aesthetic of the lakefront. Watching Sunday night football, Monday night football, the afternoon game, seeing the blimp shot. I want to see that, though, with a brand new stadium, and I want to no longer give this ownership the excuse of, we don't own this. We don't have enough revenue of that. Enough of that. This is that first opening step, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is there is a metro station in Arlington Heights, and they could put a people mover, or something going out of there into the stadium site. Plus, there's going to be plenty of parking. It'll be, like you say, there's 4 directions, whereas you actually, I think you have north, south, and west going to Soldier Field. Last time I was there, actually, years ago, I actually ended up, I was at the old ESPN zone. I took a taxi from there, and eventually I said, drop me off here. I'm going to walk the rest of the way, and I did take the L back, but I have never parked there. to my knowledge. Or maybe I did, maybe a zillion years ago. But I can remember them playing at Wrigley Field. My uncle had seats where almost by the Bartman area for a football game, which wasn't too bad. It was like kind of like the corner of the end zone, so that was cozy. 30,000 something seats, which would never happen in the NFL now. But in any event, they went to Soldier Field, and I think the Soldier Field days are coming to an end. It appears based upon this latest interchange, and that's you look at all the other markets here. At least they'd stay in Illinois, unlike the Jets and the Giants. So I guess that would be something. But it looks like a done deal at this point, but it won't be for several years, obviously.
Yeah, and I do think that they will do whatever it takes. They will pay any money, as cheap as we do think that family is. They will pay all the expenses. The NFL will help pay for expenses. I think what's going to be interesting to see how IDOT and the states work with the Bears and Arlington Heights to build new roads, to build new entrances, to make that. They do have the time now. They do have the space for it. So one thing that's valuable, but also a negative about Chicago is, like, if you own land in Chicago, that's great because they're not building any more land. You can't expand in that city. It's so tight already. Arlington Heights, you have all the room in the world to do whatever you want. So you're going to have the infrastructure. Go ahead,
Plus, you could have a dedicated exit from Route 53 on the west side there. It could be, a dedicated new exit to go right into a parking lot.
And again, you're creating jobs. It's making this new market. Now, I do find it as a trivial thing. It is pretty funny to see that in the NFC North, this is how different the sport has changed. The NFC North, once the Bears move to Arlington Heights and they do put a dome on their stadium, there's only one open air stadium in the black and blue division, and that is obviously in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and that will never change. That city will never allow, the NFL will never allow that team to put a dome in Green Bay, but I do think it is a positive for the Bears fan who is a little down on it, who does believe that this is a team that belongs at Soldier Field, belongs in the Lakefront, belongs in the city proper. But the sport is just too big for that now. The sport means more than that. It's something that we haven't really taken from the European and these South American soccer world, where like they build coliseums for their teams. Real Madrid, Liverpool, Manchester United, Tottenham, like they build huge stadiums because those are their teams. That is the place to be. That's what the NFL has finally become. Again, we're a young country. It's a young sport, all things being equal. So it was finally time for the Bears to move and to get their big boy pants on and be one of these major players that has a shiny new toy to show off to the NFL. Now, I think it's a little different than, let's say, what happens on 35th and Shields or over in Waveland. It is a little different. Baseball is a neighborhood sport. It is a regional sport, especially in Chicago. There is a connection, an attitude to where they play. That's not the case for the Bears, other than it being cold. And here's the sad truth for all Bears fans. That has not been an advantage for the Chicago Bears, whether it's cold or snowing. You have Miami coming up here and Tampa Bay coming up here, and it doesn't matter. So I think all that tradition goes out the door if you have a badass new stadium and you're winning games.
Absolutely. And the weather, obviously, from about really, Thanksgiving particularly on, is never going to be great here. So that would be another big plus. And then there could be a Super Bowl, and there could be additional revenue from concerts for sure, and a Super Bowl and everything else. So none of which would ever happen in Soldier Field, quite obviously.
I mean, think about the advertisement alone, Marvelous One. I mean, think about it. We're here on the Sports Cubicle with Dan Marver, with Devin Tingle, Paul Chivari, and myself, Mike Mercado. We want to make sure you're following us on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. Download us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, at Mercado Airwaves, and of course on SoundCloud at WCPT 820 AM. Marvelous One. I mean, it is something that, I think it's something that we have to, that I find pretty interesting about this entire stadium conversation about the Chicago Bears, right? So let's say that the Bears make this move, okay? The sponsorship, the amount of money that this team is going to make, no longer having to call it Soldier Field. It could be Toyota Park at Arlington Heights, right? And then all the signage. I mean, you see it at SoFi, at Allegiant, at AT&T, the signage, the Pepsis, the Coca-Colas. Is there any excuse when this move is done that this franchise can no longer talk about being mom and pops? And do you think this is the move for them to finally sell the team?
Could be. There's no question that there'd be naming rights for the stadium. I mean, that's 100%. I'm thinking around the league. I mean, there are, Lambeau Field and Paul Brown. I don't think they get much naming rights off of Cincinnati and Green Bay stadiums, but a lot of the other ones, U.S. Bank, Minnesota, and others, Ford Field. So, I mean, I'm looking around our division, and that's the case. So, there's no question they would be what they would do out there, and there would be obviously more revenue. So, and then they wouldn't be dealing with the park district anymore, which I think would be a plus. And it might be when the time that they might do that move with the team is when the passing away of obviously the current owner of the team that is obviously has the ties back to the Hallis generation, being George's daughter. I mean, so that would be maybe the time when they would think about that, and that's probably a time that's coming up. Whether it's going to be before Queen Elizabeth or not, I don't know. But well, that's also something that will be in the next 5 or 10, maybe around the time of the stadium's built. So that might all dovetail together.
My favorite Virginia story is always like, oh,
Yeah, right.
Virginia's angry. Oh, she's super angry at this team. She's going to have a talking with the guys. Like, thank you, Virginia. Can you talk to George, too, as we're at it, please? That would be wonderful. George and Ted, please. That would be great. But I think all in all, I think this is a good stuff for the Bears. I think this is good stuff for the state. I think the state is going to bungle it anyway. And I'm going to be honest with everybody here on the Sports Cubicle. I don't think they're going to get it right. I don't think we're going to look back at their stadium and be like, yo, this is amazing stadium. I'm proud that the Bears play here. I want everybody to see where the charter franchise of our favorite sport in this country. I don't think we're getting that. I do think we're just getting Lucas Oil Stadium, beautiful stadium. But in 2022, when you're seeing these new monuments to athletes, I think we're gonna have to settle for that. But would you be disappointed if we don't get AT&T Stadium, SoFi, Allegiant, or are you more, we're going to end up with Lucas Oil?
Lucas Oil will be fine. I just passed by it last weekend, and it looks like a fine facility to me from the outside. Never been in it, but I think that would be wonderful. That would be the perfect. We don't need all the bells and whistles. I think it would just be fine to have a Lucas Oil, in my view.
Yeah, and we know that they're going to pay a pretty penny for this because it's not going to be cheap in today's day and age.
Yeah.
We pay for labor and everything that it's going to cost to build one of these stadiums, but it's going to be a story that we keep our eye on. We got plenty of years, plenty of times that it's going to go to courts, and plenty of Chicago red tape. So it'll be fun to see what happens between the Chicago mayor, the Chicago Bears, Arlington Heights, the NFL, and all of us fans who are going to be waiting to see where we will see the beloved Bears play in about 10 years.
It will still be in Cook County. It's another thing. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus, but
and probably at second place too of the Green Bay Packers anyway. So
right.
Let us know your thoughts. We're on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. The Chicago Bears moving to Arlington Heights. Do you think the city of Chicago has a Hail Mary left in them? We're on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. It's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. It's Devin Tingle. It's Paul Chivari. I'm Mike Mercado.